What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon GO Battle League content. Today's video, we're going to take a look at the Hisui Cup as it's now truly meant to be. Real quick, if you guys didn't already know, basically, the leagues rotated. We thought we were getting the Hisui Cup that I originally made a video on, and every other content creator also made a video on. And then they gave us the old Hisui Cup, which is literally just Sinnoh Pokemon plus Hisuian forms instead of everything in the Pokemon Legends Arceus Pokedex like we were promised. And then Niantic goes and sneakily decides to go ahead and change the blog post to match what the new rules set for the cup would be instead of giving us what was originally promised. Now, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know, because the old version that we were supposed to get looked like a really weird version of the Open Great League. And this version, a lot more condensed, but at least it's different, I guess. We haven't had the meta in like over a year or 2 years, so... But anyway, we're going to take a look at top picks and some 5 teams that I think are going to be really strong. This meta is 2 weeks long, so hopefully this video comes to some use to some of you, and let's dive right in. And so you've probably already played this cup, and maybe you're already bored of it. And if you're still playing it, hopefully this information is of some sort of use to you. But basically, we've got, you know, Gastrodon and Cresselia up at top. You've seen plenty of Gastrodon. Cresselia is not as common, but it's still very good in this meta, having really solid play into really just about everything. Drapion and Drifblim are probably 2 of its worst matchups. Frostlass it has play into, and Lucario only wins because it lands Shadow Ball, let's be honest. It's probably like a Pup Shadow Ball sort of situation. But aside from that, Cresselia has a very strong amount of play into this meta, so it's a really good Pokemon if you have the ability to use one. And if you don't have a Cresselia, please remember that the Road to Sinnoh event coming next week in next month in February, or maybe this month, depending on when you're watching this, there's a free timed research where you get a Great League Cresselia. Now, if you try to catch it during the raid hour for Cresselia, it might know Grass Knot. So just something to keep in mind. Hopefully that helps somebody. I like Toxicroak in this meta as well. Having Shadow Ball helps it hit those ghost types. But one of the things that I think is really underrated in this meta is Gliscor. Gliscor is an absolute unit. Even though in the Sims it doesn't beat Bastiodon, trust me, this thing can beat Bastion. But if you can choose, Gliscor as a Shadow is significantly better in this meta, even though the rankings don't reflect it. Earthquake can one-shot Bastiodon if it's a Shadow, whereas you can't one-shot Bastiodon if you're not a Shadow. And that shadow damage adds up very quickly, able to get farm downs in some cases. Those Night Slash is going to do a little bit more damage. You can run Aerial Ace if you want to, but I think Night Slash is better because of the amount of teams running things like Frostlass and Drifblim, and just the ability to have that dark coverage is really good. Abomasnow, I believe, is a bit of a sleeper pick in this meta, as it does do very well against Flyers and the Gastrodons. So that's also something to keep in mind as well. Abomasnow also getting wins over things like Cresselia, and even getting a win against Drapion is nice because it doesn't have that Sludge Bomb typically in this meta. Gallade is another Pokemon coming out to me on the rankings here that I've started to see some more of, especially with a Shadow Gallade. Those Shadow Confusions hurt, dude. And I like this Pokemon a lot. I like Gallade a lot because it has this really good fast move coverage, and it gets to Leaf Blade very quickly, making it a very, very strong threat versus things like Gastrodon, and also even able to fight back against Empoleon. And the confusion damage still hurts all the ghost types that would typically come in. Even Gliscor doesn't want to deal with Leaf Blades and confusion. So your opponent will typically have to invest both of their shields in order to do something like farm down a Gallade. So very good Pokemon. Empoleon, you're going to know, is everywhere. I don't really need to explain Empoleon, but just so you know, good waterfall, fast move pressure, Hydro Cannon, Drill Peck is great coverage, so you're not going to have any problems in here running Empoleon. Very common Pokemon in this meta, also very, very strong. Munchlax is a good safe swap. It's kind of like Lickitung, except you can run it with Lick or Tackle, and you got ground coverage and Bulldoze, which is nice to deal with Bastion if you end up using it as a safe swap to lure out a Bastion, for example. And then a couple more things. Hisuian Electrode, very good coverage, being able to beat the Empoleon Drifblim core quite nicely, having that electric grass typing. And the other thing that I want to point out here, which I have no idea where it is, but Hisuian Samurott, okay? This thing is extremely underrated. The Sims don't do it justice. Having dark and ice coverage It doesn't do as well against Bastiodon, but if you guys haven't seen it, I already made a team video on a Hisui and Samurott team that I ran, and it was an amazing team. Hisui and Samurott core breaks so many things, and it can go through an Empoleon, and if your opponent's running double Ghost in the back, it's over. Hisui and Samurott nearly solos the whole team. So really, really, really strong and fun Pokemon if you happen to have one. Hisui and Samurott was available back in a raid day, back in October, I believe. November, sorry. November. It was definitely December. I just know it was the first month of the season, so that means it was December. You got me. I know it's in December. We got there. It's in December. So you have to trade for one to get one under 1500, but if you're lucky enough to be able to get one in this meta, it's extremely strong. So let's talk about the first team here. That's going to be Empoleon Double Ghost. It's a team that you've probably seen plenty of. This is an extremely strong team. For me, I like to run Drifblim with double debuff moves because I almost never want to throw the Shadow Ball. And the only thing that I ever really want to throw the Shadow Ball at is Frostlass and maybe an Empoleon, where maybe one game you're going to miss having Shadow Ball on the Empoleon perhaps. But overall, Icy Wind and Mystical Fire is extremely good coverage for this meta, being able to hit, because like you can hit Frostlass with Mystical Fire, you can hit Gliscor and other flyers with Icy Wind, and Empoleon's just an extremely neutral and strong pick in this meta. Pretty good lever coverage here. Very, very consistent damage output. Bulk, you're not going to get a lot of bulk in this meta unless you're considering running something like Bastiodon or Cresselia or Munchlax, the very bulky Pokemon. But that's okay because the damage output on these things is amazing. You can see that it's got pretty good coverage on the meta. There are some things that the sims tell you that you're going to lose to. Drifblim, not exactly a safe matchup for Empoleon, but it's not a bad one either because Empoleon does win CMP, and the only way that the Drifblim really is going to win is if it successfully baits and then lands a Shadow Ball. Not going to be an easy task, and you also have Frostlass in the back to deal with if you see it. Munchlax is a bit of a pain. I imagine that it loses to Empoleon loses to it because of that Bulldoze landing. And then obviously you've got Drifblim with Ghost type damage that really gets kind of beat up by Munchlax's lick damage, and then Frostlass just probably gets overwhelmed here by the lick damage. But everything else you got some coverage into, or it doesn't really exist in this meta. Magnezone does exist. You would really have to make a team effort to get through Magnezone. That's one of the Pokemon I forgot to mention in the beginning there was Magnezone. I like Magnezone a lot as a Pokemon here that is able to core break a lot of teams with the Steel Electric typing. But overall, very, very strong team. Like it a lot. Let's jump into team number 2 here and look at what we've got. So this is that bulky team I was mentioning, right? Cresselia, Bastiodon, Munchlax. We're using Munchlax as our safe swap here to bait out a fighter for the Bastiodon to hopefully be able to sweep. Now, I have not seen a lot of double fighting teams, and that's really because there's a lot of double Ghost or double Flyer, a lot of Gastrodon about. So originally, I wasn't sure if the fighters would be worth, doubling up on in the back, and it really does seem like the meta's shifted in such a way that it really kind of doesn't really feel good to run double fighters. So if your opponent's only running one fighter, or you can catch it in the lead and do well with your Bastiodon and your Munchlax in the back, then you're hanging pretty good because this team has really good letter coverage across the meta. Safety, yes, it's an RPS, but this whole cup is kind of RPS a bit here. Lucario, once again, Lucario beating Cresselia, in my opinion, is a complete just whatever. It's whatever. It doesn't really apply as much. If you shield the Shadow Ball, Cresselia wins that matchup hands down. And everything else is pretty much you either win in the lead, lose in the back, or one way or the other. But having that Munchlax with Bulldoze can really help you in a lot of matchups. And Lucario is the only thing in this meta aside from Bastiodon itself, which you could certainly team effort a Bastiodon with a team like this. But Lucario is the only thing in this meta that we don't have coverage on the entire team for. Everything else, we got coverage in this team, and that's fine because you're going to use this team to really bait out. Again, you're going to bait out that fighter and then use Bastiodon in the back and use its incredible bulk to sweep. So let's talk about team number 3 here because it's one of my personal favorites. And that's because we've already got a video on it on the channel. Once again, if you guys haven't already seen it, go check out the video from Monday morning. Or I guess it could be any time of the day, depending on where you are. But the Monday upload was a Hisui and Samurott. Got me 120 elo in this league, and this team was just incredible to play. Gliscor, in my opinion, once again, I would prefer Shadow. Frostlass, you probably don't have a shadow, but if you do, you can use it. But it just lowers the amount of bulk that you have. And Hisui and Samurott, just absolutely an amazing Pokemon in this meta as a core breaker. And I would really recommend checking out the battle as well as the Friday stream where I played this team a bunch if you really want to get a good feel and good look at how this team runs. Empoleon is a tie technically, but I've got a special way that I like to play that lead. So again, check out the video because you're going to get all the goodies out of that. Bibarel, yeah, technically not exactly a great matchup for any of these things here, but you know, Hisui and Samurott having the water subtyping really helps it deal with the Bibarel and the Empoleon, things like that. And when Lopunny and the Mirror Hisui and Samurott are the hardest things in this meta for this team to come by, like, I'm good, dude. Like we said, we got a game plan for Empoleon, and that's the only other thing that this team doesn't have some sort of coverage into. So, in my opinion, this team is pretty cracked and I like it a lot, but up to you to decide whether you like this team or if you want to check out the next one and see how that one goes. So getting into this next team here, we've got a Magnezone Double Psychic team where we're utilizing Cresselia on the save swap to get out that Drifblim, excuse me, or getting out the, the Frostlass, the thing that would allow Gallade to really, shine here. Now, Gliscor definitely is a bit of a core breaker for this team, so you'd have to play it with care. But keep in mind, a Wild Charge from a Magnezone, especially a Shadow Magnezone, really hurts a Gliscor, even though it's resisted. So Gallade, one of those Pokemon I mentioned in the beginning of the video, really strong, especially if you can give it shields and you don't have to put it in a situation where it's against like a flyer or something. It is really able to just rip through things with Confusion, gets to Leaf Blade in 3 Confusions, Close Combat in 4. It's just a really strong, consistent Pokemon that has the fast move pressure and the speedy charge moves to be able to keep up. And I like the coverage on this team a lot. Because, like we said, with the last team, if Luxray and Hisuian Typhlosion are the only things that this team has problems with across the board, there's a lot of play here. So, yes, and every team's going to be a little bit RPS, but I still think that this team is extremely strong, and I'd be looking to try it next time. And you could even, substitute out the Cresselia for something else if you have, something else you'd prefer to use. Like maybe you could use, Toxicroak or something if you want to as well. Having that Shadow Ball will allow you to, deal with any ghosts that may come in. So, Lucario also kind of works, but I think I would prefer to have Toxicroak in that situation just because of its poison typing, allowing it to do well against fighting types. But speaking of Toxicroak, let's talk about our final team here in the video. And that's going to be Toxicroak, Abomasnow, and Empoleon. This team I like because Toxicroak and Abomasnow form a really strong core here, only really having a major issue with Frostlass. But if you put, more than one shield down on the line, or if you catch a bait with the Mud Bomb on the Toxicroak, you have play because the opponent's only running Powder Snow. They're not like doing super effective damage, even though the counters from Toxicroak in that Frostlass matchup are resisted. Still not that bad. They still do some decent chunks of damage. So looking into this particular team here, Sneasler an issue, but lots of people don't have Sneasler, and Toxicroak itself could be an issue. So you may have to handle the mirror in a very specific sort of way. But I haven't seen a whole lot of Toxicroaks in the lead. Typically they're sitting in the back waiting to counter swap against that Munchlax or that Empoleon that you want to safe swap. And speaking of Empoleon safe swap, it's really good because it's able to draw out fighters and it has Drill Peck coverage. So that really helps you at least get shield advantage, which allows your Abomasnow or your Toxicroak to set themselves up with shield advantage and sweep the team on the other side. This team, Sneasler and Roserade are the worst things for it. Toxicroak Mirror, probably the only other tricky thing here. Everything else has a ton of play. The only thing that I would probably see a major issue with playing through here is going to be that Trash Cloak Wormadam. I know I didn't put it in any of the teams here, but it's a very good sleeper pick in this meta with that Bug Steel typing. There's very few fire types running around, and there's not very many dark types either. So it's a very good neutral Pokemon. It has that confusion damage, just like Gallade does. So wouldn't mind fitting that on one of these teams either. But guys, that's going to do it for me for today. I did promise I was going to get these out. Whether or not it is any use to this point in the cup now that we've had it for a couple days. Either way, I hope that maybe some of these team ideas will help you if you get bored of Go Open Great League like I have. and you want to go play Hisui Cup, it's really actually not the worst meta. It just takes a little bit of trying to get used to, and maybe you just need that right Pokemon to put you over the tipping point of going 3-2, 2-3 every set. Like I said, I had a lot of fun with Hisui and Samurott. I feel like that would be the team that I would like to play. I even played a few sets of Hisui Cup today as of recording this video. I was on Monday's stream, and I feel like my Hisui and Samurott line would have just destroyed almost every team I played in those 2 sets that I played Hisui Cup. So I'm going to leave it with that. Y'all, thank you so much. Again, if you want to, please consider joining the Patreon or YouTube membership. It gets you access to my Discord, where these meta guides are going out earlier than they would hit YouTube by quite a few days. Also, any exclusive access to my teams early on before they hit YouTube, things like that, as well as plenty of other specific exclusive things. You can just check out the links in the description and the pinned comment for that, as well as Metafy. If you want to catch me for some coaching, I do have a Metafy account. You can go ahead and sign up for coaching. We have any array of lessons, being team building or fast move timing, all kinds of things. So really appreciate you guys watching the video. Check that stuff out, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.